Hi, I'm just finishing up my clinical day and I wanted to pop on here quickly and put together just some thoughts on boundaries. And the reason I want to do that is because we're focusing a lot in clinic and in groups on self-care and self-compassion. And boundaries, or difficulty setting boundaries, really seems to be one of the main barriers to self-care and compassion. Once people get a little bit more comfortable with the idea that it is important to take care of ourselves and show ourselves compassion, it's then protecting the time and space to do that. And boundaries are obviously required to do that. So setting boundaries can sometimes be thought of as being unkind or something that a caregiver shouldn't do. That's messaging we get in Western culture, that it's maybe selfish to set boundaries and take time for ourselves or to say no thank you to things. Really, boundaries actually are one way that we do love ourselves and others. And in fact, a lack of setting boundaries is a root cause of resentment that can build up in a relationship. So when I show up in a relationship and I'm clear with you about where I end and where you begin and what I'm comfortable with, and I can communicate that out to you, then you have a good sense of what my boundaries are. When I'm unable to tell you that or don't give myself permission to do that, you might be stepping over my boundaries all the time without that awareness. And that ultimately does lead to me, over time, developing resentment of how you make me feel, because I'm always doing or saying or participating in things that don't innately fit with what I need. So it's not simply, though, that when I say a boundary, other people have to listen to it or have to agree with it. So that's another problem that we have in setting boundaries, is when a person does finally share what their needs are or where their limits are at, they can get really discouraged quickly if other people don't understand them or don't agree with them. Now, in a healthy relationship, it's okay, because a person who loves you and loves you authentically will say, I don't need to understand that that event made you tired and now you can't go out today. I'm hearing from you that you are tired and can't go out today, and you have told me that you have a limit there, and so I'm going to accept that, even though I went to the same event with you and I have all the energy in the world to keep going. So as an example, I don't have to understand your boundary or agree with it in that sense, but I can agree that you can have boundaries. So when we get into less healthy and even toxic relationships, what can happen is I can assert a boundary, this is what I need, or this is my limit, and the other person may end up saying to me, you're not allowed to have that boundary. What we might want to do as a result of that is just start explaining. You just need to understand more about why that's a boundary for me, and that's because I'm coming from a place that you have to agree with me in order for that to be a valid boundary. So we encourage people to actually, communicate out what your boundary is, but you don't have to explain it over and over again, because it's okay for other people to not agree with you. You can give yourself permission to say, this is what I need, and I'm okay with you not agreeing. I may have to be even more assertive in how I set that boundary, meaning I might just have to say, I'm absolutely not going out. This is the boundary, and I'm sorry that it's upsetting to you. And again, I now have to be okay with that person having a different opinion about it without taking that on personally. So it's a fine line between communicating and explaining or over-explaining. But generally when we're setting boundaries, it's just really important to say, this is what I need, and this is what I'm asking, this is how I feel, and this is the request. We might negotiate it a bit. Sure, I'll come out for a little bit, might be an appropriate piece, but a lot of times we don't even necessarily need to do that. So the final thing that kind of gets in the ways with setting boundaries is that a lot of people don't slow down enough to know what their boundaries are. So this goes back to a lot of the work that we've been doing around being in your body. I can't know how I feel about this experience if I'm rushing around from moment to moment without allowing this to come up into my awareness. I don't know how I feel about you if I don't allow myself to sit and think, how do I feel when I'm with that person? When we slow down and allow this innate intuitive wisdom to become present for us, as opposed to societal overthinking wisdom, from that place, we often know, you know, just a minute, I don't feel good about this. I don't have a good feeling, or I'm just sensing how tired I am. Or, geez, when I leave that person, the type of conversation we're having doesn't resonate with me or doesn't feel good for me. I need to do something there. So we figure out those boundaries coming from a place of self and then out. Now, going back to one of the challenges around, I don't want to set a boundary because I don't want to be mean, or even in a toxic relationship, somebody might say to you, you have to do that. And in fact, you having a boundary is not loving. You said you were loving. I am loving. And the loving starts here. I have to love myself enough to honor my experience, lovingly set a boundary and engage with you and allow you to set those boundaries. So again, a loving action isn't just agreeing or not having boundaries. A lot of times a loving action is being able to communicate it in a loving way with loving intention and letting go of trying to control and predict other people. So I hope that we're slowly weaving together here not only the importance of slowing down, you're often going to hear me say, being in our bodies, because our bodies have immense amounts of wisdom in them, and our brains try to detract us away from that intuitive knowing and maneuvering. And then also just this awareness of, geez, if I give myself permission, if I know that setting boundaries is loving towards you and towards me, if it's honoring of our relationship, and I give you permission to see this differently, those things can be tremendously helpful in honoring ourselves and others through self-compassion, self-love, and boundaries. So as always, everything that we share here is in love and only love. And we do hope that you are finding the information we're putting out to be helpful to you. So thank you.